What's up everybody, this is Cecil Alexander with Jazz Lesson Videos, and today we're going to be talking about 5 phrases from my latest package with JLV entitled 20 Essential Jazz Guitar Warm-Ups. So all of these warm-ups are going to be focused on getting your fingers ready to play through some material, but I think the way that these differ from the typical warm-ups is that they're also going to get your ears involved. So if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper and checking out the remaining 15 warm-ups, you can feel free to use the coupon code CA5 for an additional $5 off. So our first warm-up is going to be focusing on using the arpeggios through the E dominant bebop scale. So those arpeggios are going to exist off the chord tones in the scale, the root, 3rd, 5th, and flat 7th. So those arpeggios will be E7, G sharp minor 7 flat 5, B minor 7, and D major 7. So we're going to connect those arpeggios through the scale using passing tones as well as just the structure of the scale itself. So we go up E7, and then we land on the 6th of the scale. We add an extra passing tone so we can put the 5th of the scale on a strong beat. We land on G sharp, and we go up that G sharp minor 7 flat 5, down the bebop scale, into B minor 7, down the scale, into D major 7. Then we're going to do the same thing up the octave. So E7, G sharp minor 7 flat 5, B minor 7, D major 7. And then on the way down, instead of just using the same arpeggios and connecting them to the scale, we're going to do a slight variation on the arpeggio, which is going to be a pivot arpeggio. So starting on E, we still do E, G sharp, B, and D for our E7, but we're going to put the G sharp, B, and D down the octave. So this is called a pivot arpeggio, which is really common in bebop vocabulary. And we do the same passing tone, 6, flat 6, into 5, and then into the 3rd, where we do the same thing with G sharp minor 7 flat 5. So instead of G sharp, B, D, F sharp, we do B, D, and F sharp down the octave. Land on the root, and then we do the same thing with B minor 7, so B, D, F sharp, A, and then with D, we do D major 7, so D, F sharp, A, C sharp, and then finally down the scale into the root of the scale. So the full exercise is going to sound like this. So for the next exercise, we're going to check out moving a melodic cell through the C major scale. So that's one cool thing I think about melodic cells is when you sort of transpose it through just one key, because you end up with all of these different sorts of shapes. So our melodic cell is going to be 1, 2, 5, 6. So on the root of the major scale, that'll be C, D, G, A. And we just move it through the scale, so we end up with D, E, A, and B. And then there, that's where you see the structure is going to change. So instead of having the exact same intervallic structure of 1, 2, 5, 6, now we have 1, flat 2, 5, and flat 6. So you could also think of just moving this through the different modes of the major scale if you want. On F, we still have 1, 2, 5, 6. On G, we also have 1, 2, 5, 6. On A, we're going to have 1, 2, 5, flat 6, and then on B, we'll have 1, flat 2, flat 5, flat 6. So we're going to do the same thing in 2 octaves, and then we're going to descend also in 2 octaves. And when we descend, we're going to do 6, 5, 2, 1. So doing the full exercise, ascending and descending will sound like this. So you notice that on the way up and on the way back down, I did slightly different positions for some of the melodic cells. And I think that that's kind of the point of this exercise, is not just unlocking areas of the fretboard, but it's having that melodic cell connected enough to your ears so that you can find new shapes on the fretboard as you're playing through it. So as I'm playing through the exercise, I'm kind of hearing what the sound of the next melodic cell should be, and then I'm trying to find those notes on the fretboard in real time. So next up, we're going to have a diminished scale exercise. So this is going to cover both the half whole diminished scale and the whole half diminished scale, and we're just going to be descending chromatically from E to E. Down the octave. So we're going to start with E half whole diminished from the root, descending. So and then we land on this C sharp, which is still within that scale, but then we're going to go up C sharp whole half diminished. We get up to E within that scale. And then we do an enclosure to E flat, and we continue the same pattern descending chromatically through the keys. So E flat half whole diminished. Land on C, go up C whole half. Enclosure into D. There's D half whole diminished into B whole half. So you get an idea of the pattern. So we're basically going to do that going again from E half whole through the different diminished scales, and then we're going to land on the low E on the 6th string. So the full exercise will sound like this, put up to speed. So this exercise will not only help with being able to visualize the half whole and whole half diminished scales across the neck, but it'll also improve your right hand technique. So you'll notice I'm using all alternate picking for the exercise, starting with an upstroke on that high E. So with the exception of that very first note, that upstroke, we have an even number of notes picked on each string, which I think is really useful for structuring phrases on the neck so that they'll complement your right hand. So the next exercise is going to be a chromatic enclosure exercise moving through the C major scale. And similar to the major scale melodic cell exercise that we did before with the 1, 2, 5, 6 shape, this one is going to also challenge your ears because it's such a small piece of information that you can think about, all the different ways that you can play that on the neck. So the idea is basically just starting with an enclosure with one diatonic note above our target and one chromatic note above our target. So our first target is going to be that C natural, the root of the scale. So we start one diatonic note above, D natural, and chromatic note below. Then moving into D, we have E, which is our diatonic note above, chromatic note below. Moving into E, F, D sharp into E. Moving into F, we have G, E, F. Into G, we'll have A, F sharp, G. Moving into A, we'll have B, G sharp, A. And then moving into B, we'll have C, A sharp, B, and then finally we're back to targeting the root, which will be D, B, into C. And we're going to do this in a couple different octaves. So we're going to start with this C as our first target, and then we're going to end up with this C up here really high on the first string. So the full exercise will sound like this. So this last exercise started off as me kind of practicing ways of going outside of the chord changes, using some really small pieces of vocabulary. So the idea is that we're descending chromatically through all the different keys using this pattern. So the pattern is going to start on G, and I'm thinking of this as being related to G7. So you have, like, if you're thinking of that as a melodic cell, that'd be 1, 4, 2, 5, and then 1 up the octave. And we add in just kind of a passing tone of the second degree of the scale. and then we move down a half step into F sharp, and this will be the start of F sharp 7. So then that pattern is going to be like 1, 5, 4, flat 7, 6, 3, 2, then a passing tone, chromatic approach into the root. One more time. And then we do the same pattern, so that 1, 4, 2, 5, 1, and then we just continue down in half steps through the different keys. So just going through a couple keys really quickly, we have G7, F sharp 7, F7, E7, E flat 7, D7. So we'll go down 1 octave from G7 back to G7 at the 3rd fret area down here. So it'll sound like this slowly. So as I mentioned before, it's a really great exercise for practicing kind of going outside of the chord change. So I could be playing over G7, and then I could use this pattern to move into F sharp 7, so side slipping or playing a half step below or half step above the chord change. But it's also a really great technical exercise because it improves your cross-picking ability. So that's kind of playing like 1 note per string stuff. So we have 1 note here, 2 notes there, 1 note, and then 1 note, and then on the way back down with that F sharp pattern, it's improving your upward sweep picking, which I personally have a lot of difficulty with. So once I get that F sharp there, I do another upstroke and then a downstroke sweep. So you see that downward sweep there. So as I mentioned before, all of these exercises will be great for improving your technique. As you saw in the last couple of phrases there, we're focusing on some really specific right hand techniques, but there's also a lot of elements in the left hand that will be challenged. And they're improving your ears and your ability to see a lot of different patterns on the fretboard, which will help with improvisation. So if you feel like digging a little bit deeper into this subject of jazz warm-ups, feel free to check out my latest resource with jazz lesson videos, 20 Essential Jazz Guitar Warm-Ups. And again, feel free to use the coupon code CA5 for an additional $5 off. And like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.